Investigators had already engaged with his fiancée. But whose narrative was this? They knew she was already claiming it was her idea. The source of this disturbing account is 28-year-old Aaron Lambertus. In this room, Aaron is shifting blame onto his 19-year-old fiancée, Isa. For a shooting, he executed an act that left 2 people on the brink of death. Is she also in a rush? I will be extremely open and honest about everything. I just need to know what she told you guys. As the interrogation unfolds, a pattern emerges. This suspect would barrage detectives with a litany of self-pitying justifications, and I just try to scare somebody. It's the only time I feel my hand come back. What followed was a stunning confession, one that would trigger a cold case murder investigation across state lines. I remember helping him with the body and throwing it in the river and then waking up back home. I'm not sorry that you guys are humans. I'm sorry that that's what I literally had to do to feel like a human. On a humid August night in 2023, Loveland, Colorado police received multiple calls about an unthinkable event in a Safeway parking lot. A vehicle bearing Montana license plates had methodically circled the lot. It paused before 3 homeless individuals sleeping on the ground and then erupted with a volley of gunfire. The car then vanished into the night, leaving a scene of chaos behind. One victim was transported to the emergency room and treated for an injury that was not life-threatening. A second person at the location suffered a graze wound from a bullet, while a third was, by some miracle, completely unscathed. The victims, who had no known adversaries, were merely seeking a place to rest for the night. This detail gave investigators a chilling sense of dread. The attacker wasn't targeting specific individuals. The motive appeared to be something far more sinister, the thrill of the act itself. It took authorities only a matter of days to trace the vehicle's owner. In the 2020s, it's a known fact that surveillance cameras are nearly ubiquitous. The vehicle was pinpointed and traced to 27-year-old Aaron Ellias Lambertus. He was a transgender man residing in Bozeman, Montana, but he was not alone in the car. His 19-year-old girlfriend, Ayla Yvonne Astloof, was identified as the driver. Both were apprehended in Montana for questioning by Colorado authorities. From the moment he enters the room, Aaron sets a bizarre tone. "Hey everybody, Gerard? Hey, what's up? How you doing? Sick as, are you the flu? Oh no." I'm like, dude, freezing. Yeah, I've heard that. I'm wearing more layers, but we'll see what we can do. Have you been offered any water or anything like that? No. Do you want some water? It's been a little bit. I mean, I can offer at this point. Honestly, I think I might throw it up if I have it. Okay, well, if you can get nicotine though, one of my dip pouches would be lit. But if you can't do that though, it's all good. I won't make any promises because it's Montana's house and I'm from Colorado. So I don't want to make any promises I can't keep. But we'll ask and see what we can do. Okay, am I under arrest? You are. So we're going to get to that. Clearly it sounds like it was quite the event, but you are under arrest. You're not free to leave. But you know, with that said, there's some things that we do want to talk about. And of course, our state, we have this form. We have all these rules that we have to abide by. I want to read those to you just to make sure we're on the same page. Just know that for the last hour, we've been talking to your fiancée and that she's fine. I just want you to know that. Okay, is she also under? She? Yes, but she's fine. I just want you to have peace of mind. Not her. Is there any chance I can see her before we go? I don't want to talk to her. I want to give her... No, we'll cross that bridge and figure that out when we're done here. Okay, I'm not making you a promise or anything like that. We don't run the show here, all right? This is Montana and we're from Colorado. But we'll figure something out. We'll inquire for you. Okay, I promise you. I mean, I'm willing to help you guys out too. I know 3 different blow dealers that get breaks on breaks. If you can hook me up, I will give you names and addresses of 3 different people that sell blow and age and pounds and pounds. Well, let's just start with some basics. You might just spell in your full name. The detective began the official reading. He was asked if he understood. He affirmed, then the right to silence. Words become evidence. The right to counsel. He questioned the immediacy of the offer. He immediately invoked his right to counsel. State-appointed counsel was then offered. He stressed his need for absolute clarity. The detective confirmed his request to wait. His father, he mentioned, was a defense attorney. He expressed a fear of his words twisting. Waiting for hours versus the risk of talking, the officer demanded a clear decision. They would honor a request for counsel, but they would not wait indefinitely for him. He pivoted, probing for what they knew, specifically what the woman had told them. He acknowledged their procedural script. He framed a desire for a full conversation. He gave a promise of complete honesty. His stated motive was protecting her. The detective confirmed she was in trouble. They were constrained by strict federal rules. A sudden reversal. He waived his right. For clarity, the form was read once more. His father reference was a psychological tell. Fear of solitude and fear for her drove him. The unspoken code of silence would be broken. A strategic transition in his approach. He offered cooperation for a condition. He wanted to see her, to know her status. The detective could offer no such promise. They asserted their own policy of honesty. They would only inquire, nothing more. They circled back to his waiver of rights. It had to be free of any coercion. He confirmed there was none. His decision to speak was entirely voluntary. He verified no force or promises were made. He confirmed he would talk without a lawyer. With that, his consent was given. They, in turn, promised him only the truth. They asked for the same respect from him. He agreed he would not lie to them. The interview then began, starting with Colorado. He described their trip to Colorado as a visit to family and parks. This was the stated purpose, but exhaustion quickly set in after 2 parks. They abandoned their plans, saw family, and returned home a day early. The trip's original intended duration was questioned. He recalled the plan was for 7 or 8 days. Departure details were hazy. He claimed a poor memory. He insisted his memory, though awful, was honest. The time of their return was unclear. He stated they arrived early, around 6 or 7 a.m., 2 days prior. A specific memory surfaced, waking in Billings at 6:41. His illness during this period was attributed to the flu. He narrowed their return day to either Tuesday or Wednesday. The details remained uncertain. The week-long trip, cut short, included only 2 park visits. Authorities pressed for the specific names of the parks they had visited. He feigned a lack of knowledge about the outdoors. Their stop at the sand dunes was described as a brief, late arrival. He claimed ignorance of the park's layout as the reason for leaving. Access, he explained, required a special pre-pass they did not have. The second park was Rocky Mountain, before the topic shifted to his relationship. He described her as his wife, professing an unwavering devotion to her. She was his support, a stark contrast to an allegedly abusive ex-wife. The divorce from his ex had been stalled for over a year. He blamed his ex-wife for the delay, citing her failure to file paperwork. Her inaction was presented as the sole obstacle. He had known his current partner, Ayla, for a year and a half. They met, he said, because Ayla was his ex-wife's co-worker. Their relationship began at trivia nights he was forced to attend. He claimed a mutual dislike for the bar scene and trivia itself. Despite this, the experience was worth it. His marital status was questioned. His answer about their marriage was indirect, mentioning a witness. He claimed a technically married, though not legal, status they were engaged. This engagement, he recalled, occurred in late November. The investigator noted the unusually strong bond apparent between them. Official records showed an engagement in May of 2023, when Ayla was 18. Immediately after, the two began living together. They bonded over problems. Despite her family's reported acceptance, her family had extended an open invitation for them to visit. But the focus of the interview was their confirmed presence in Loveland, Colorado. The vehicle they were driving led authorities all the way to Montana. His previous cryptic mention of drug dealers was brought up again. The investigator, however, dismissed the narcotics angle entirely. He admitted his past included associates who used illegal drugs, yet he claimed a personal indifference to the subject of narcotics now. The investigator's true focus, he stated, was on violent crimes against people. The investigation began because an act of violence had occurred within their relationship. Authorities needed to understand the story behind the incident, the catalyst for the attack. Their car was at the scene. The events were known. All that remained was the elusive motive. The detective pushed for a full confession, suggesting he needed to hear the entire narrative from the beginning. The central question hung in the air. What exactly had transpired? His account started unexpectedly, inside a tent. He described a tense conversation where she confessed her love but admitted her powerlessness to help his condition. A feeling of deep frustration emerged. He felt his own identity eroding daily. with every conventional method of help failing him. He claimed there was a single, desperate act that worked, one she had witnessed firsthand. The act involved inflicting profound terror on an unsuspecting person. This, he said, was the only way he felt he could return to himself, prompting questions about the victims. He insisted the targets were always random, and that he never intended to cause them physical injury. But the facts told a different story. The interrogation shifted to the escalation, why gunfire was used to maximize the fear. He maintained he wasn't aiming at a person, but at the ground just beneath the car. He admitted to reading a news article stating the victim went to the hospital for a possible gunshot wound. Yet, he found relief in a subsequent line stating the cause of injury was unconfirmed. This detail was significant, a window into his detached state of mind. Investigators informed him that the victim was, in fact, not seriously harmed. The man was out of the hospital and mobile. The victim was reportedly just as confused by the senseless violence as the authorities were. He was asked again if he knew the man, and he denied it emphatically. The victim was chosen by chance, discovered while he was driving around looking for a target. In a moment of contradiction, he claimed he did not want to traumatize people. He asserted this was the only such incident that had occurred in Colorado. The detective probed the truthfulness of his statements, demanding direct confirmation. He was asked to specify his location within the vehicle during the shooting. He was in the passenger seat, he stated, using a G43 handgun. He believed the gun was still in the vehicle, along with an FN 509. The second weapon, he explained, was for his own personal protection. His familiarity with that particular area of Loveland was questioned. He claimed he had never heard of the place, raising questions about how he ended up there. It was merely a sign on their way home, a detour he felt was worth taking to reclaim his sanity. According to Aaron's own narrative, his only path to feeling human was to nearly scare someone to death. Aaron was found competent to stand trial and underwent a mental health evaluation. Though the report was sealed, he began to hint that his issues stemmed from a dark childhood event. The source of this trauma, he alleged, was one of his mother's ex-boyfriends. The investigation had been extensive, involving conversations with many connected to the case. Authorities had also spoken with numerous members of his partner's family. They expressed not only support for her, but also grave concern for the couple. The detective circled back to a traumatic event from when he was 13 years old. He immediately confirmed he knew what the detective was referring to. His story began with a portrait of his mother's unstable life, filled with transient men. He spoke of his mother, but it was her parents who had legally adopted him. The story would make clear why she was an unfit guardian. Her severe addiction led to an incident when he was 13 with one of her friends. He thought he was sharing a joint with them, but the world began to spin violently. He knew then it was something else, waking up later in a basement. A fragmented memory surfaced, helping a man with a body, the river, and then being home. For the longest time, he convinced himself it was just a terrible nightmare. This all took place in his hometown back in Kentucky. He claims no memory of the victim, only the parts of the event he cannot forget. When he finally told his adoptive mother, she confessed her disbelief. She apparently confirmed the man, Michael, had taken his own life months after the incident, a chilling end to a dark chapter. The question remained whether this was an isolated event, a singular descent into darkness. No, he insisted he took measures to contain the impulse, to keep it controlled. He sought out willing participants on websites, those who consented to the experience. For a time, he said, this outlet seemed to work, but the relief was temporary. Ultimately, it provided no lasting solace. Nothing worked except inducing fear, the closest one can get to violence without physical contact. He points to the fractured glass on the inside of his vehicle's windshield. A testament to his rage, he had thrown his phone at it in frustration. He tried to break it, but the glass held, a symbol of his unbreakable torment. The feeling was awful, he explained, and the only release was not in causing harm. It was, claimed, in the act of frightening someone, a distinction he felt set him apart. He understood that most who harbor such darkness want to inflict actual pain and torture. For him, the only way to quiet his internal storm was to terrify another human being. This detail was significant, a critical piece of the psychological puzzle. Investigators had encountered individuals whose primary motive was to inflict physical harm. But with him, even when discussing a weapon, that specific intention seemed absent. His confession to a 2009 murder in Louisville, Kentucky, stunned detectives. To this day, the claim has not been connected to any known missing person or Jane Doe. Authorities found no cases in Kentucky that matched the woman he described. If the victim were transient, she could be from anywhere, perhaps never reported missing at all. This, of course, assumed any part of his disturbing story was true. When asked about other firearm incidents, he stated he shoots often, but not with intent. Not with the same intent as that one night. He described it as the first time he had felt truly human in years, terrified that he had actually injured the man he shot at. That fear, being his first expressed thought, seemed to carry significant weight for him. Investigators probed for more context, for other incidents or hidden details, but his story remained fixed. He insisted there was nothing more to tell. The shooting had occurred just days prior to the interrogation. The standard procedures, such as ballistics tests, were already underway. A crucial question was posed. Would his girlfriend's DNA be found anywhere incriminating? He didn't think her DNA should be found in any compromising locations. He reasoned she would have handled the gun and could have touched the box of ammunition. He considered that her fingerprints might be on the weapon, the barrel, perhaps, or even on the rounds. The investigator probed deeper, asking if she handled the gun at all after the shot. He denied it, then immediately backtracked, admitting it was easily possible her prints were on the weapon. A silent understanding seemed to pass between them. He then shifted his focus to her welfare, questioning how much legal peril she was truly facing. The detective's assessment was grim. She was in almost the exact same position as him. He dismissed his own situation as irrelevant, insisting that only her fate mattered. The investigator clarified their role, explaining they were simply there to gather the facts of the case. He emphasized his own impartiality, stating his entire purpose was to establish an honest record. He credited the suspect with providing a clear, though disturbing, initial account. The charge, the detective revealed, was attempted first-degree murder for both of them. But he made it clear that whether the charge holds was a decision made by the district attorney, a higher authority. His unit's job was simply to supply that office with all the available information. The interrogation took a strange turn when the suspect asked if he could get some chewing tobacco. They would ask, the detective replied, but it was someone else's house, and their rules would apply. The man Aaron shot was 47 years old, had recently become homeless, and was wounded in his lower extremities. He had woken up in a state of confusion and pain, unable to process what had just occurred. He was lucky to survive, and was released from the hospital only a few days later. And while Aaron spoke at length about his own perceived trauma and the horror of the situation, something was missing. He showed no remorse for the terror he inflicted on an innocent man who was already vulnerable and merely trying to sleep. The detective steered the conversation back to the night of the shooting, asking about their search for a target. His rationale was chilling. He could not allow the person who might get hurt to be what he called a contributing member to society. He claimed a person's family, a spouse, or children made them an unacceptable target. For this reason, the objective, as he saw it, was to locate someone whom nobody would care about. The investigator pressed him to describe how he explained this logic to his companion. He recounted his thought process. If there was a chance of hurting someone, a specific kind of victim was required. He needed to find an individual so consumed by addiction that they wouldn't even be aware they had been injured. The detective confirmed this grim prerequisite. The plan was to find a drug addict, just as he had described. He affirmed that this was correct. He insisted these were his words, that this was the one and only type of target he was willing to pursue. This line of reasoning led them to the figure they saw lying on the ground. But the man on the ground, he revealed, was not his original choice. His actual target had been a woman nearby who he described as completely lost to drugs. But he determined he couldn't even fire a warning shot without being seen by over a dozen people. That level of attention was something he wanted to avoid. He figured that, with the man lying down, he wouldn't even have to aim directly at him. A shot nearby would suffice. The question then became how they found this person at all. He described it as simple. They drove downtown, saw a Safeway, and assumed they would find weird people there. And just as they were leaving, he saw 5 homeless people sitting on a corner. They drove past the group and then circled back, a detail the investigator focused on. He claimed he wanted to find a lone individual, not to ensure a clean getaway, but to limit the number of people affected. He recalled seeing another man across the street grab his belongings and sprint away after the shots. He did not want to traumatize so many people with the one act he felt he had to commit to feel normal. The investigator brought him back to the moment he first spotted the group. They would patrol the streets, circling endlessly, hunting for a solitary individual, he felt he could traumatize. He couldn't find one. It was posed to him that perhaps he sought to avoid harming a contributing member of society. He denied this, insisting their goal was never to hurt anyone from the outset. He appeared to rationalize his mindset by citing his own childhood, suggesting a past lack of support led him to this point. Thus, how could he justify taking something precious away from someone else? He described an inability to view an ordinary person without wondering if they were the good parent he never had. Regarding the choice of firearm, there was no debate. The Glock was the pre-selected weapon. It was a gun he kept in their tent, ostensibly for protection in isolated and threatening areas. He spoke of unnerving encounters with gamblers that he, as a trans man, found particularly dangerous. This was a reality he seemed to accept for all parties involved. He intentionally chose not to use the far more intimidating FN pistol, which he knew would evoke immediate fear. The stated intention was always to inflict as little harm as possible, ruling out an M15. Then, after turning down a street, they encountered the transients near the gas station. He had to drive past them 3 times before he could bring himself to fire the weapon. He confirmed they passed the location multiple times, having driven around for an indeterminate period. At least 3 passes down that small, derelict road were needed before he could commit to the act. However, investigators noted the couple was becoming versed in activities like hunting and fishing. He rejected the comparison, insisting real hunting was a profoundly different activity. But given their circumstances, one could argue they were hunting for a person to shoot. He acknowledged the grim parallel, but only if their intent had been lethal. He was asked what was discussed in the moments after the shots were fired. He claimed no memory of the conversation, only an overwhelming impulse to flee. His singular focus, he insisted, was to get her away from the scene. He couldn't recall her words, only that their conversation was not one of shock or excitement. It was not, he claimed, a moment of dark thrill. It was a pragmatic discussion. Get home and see how long the feeling lasted before their bleak reality returned. As to the plan's origin, he suggested it was his idea, perhaps a 95-5 split. He was certain she would claim the idea as her own, but he insisted it was not. It was his plan, he stated, and she simply complied, hoping it might help. The exact nature of Ayla's statement to police is unknown. As a youth offender, under 25, her records are sealed. Whether she implicated him as swiftly as he implicated others remains a mystery. But one thing appeared certain. Both he and his bride seemed to view themselves as the central figures in a tragic narrative, rooted in his alleged childhood trauma. When questioned about his time in Kentucky, he could only name the city of Louisville. He claimed to have no memory of the specific area or suburb where the incident occurred. While he could not recall his own address, he remembered his mother's. A name was provided. All one had to do, he said, was ask his mother about someone named Michael. Investigators asked if he had ever searched for media reports about a missing girl from that time. He guaranteed nothing was ever reported, certain the victim's profile ensured she would never be missed. The initial question centered on racial identity. The subject was black. The age, a guess early 20s. He had no memory of a tattoo. When pressed, his first detail was her severely short, black hair. He then corrected himself. The hair was a blonde pixie cut. He recalled 2 large hoop earrings and a single, fake diamond stud. Above her right eye, she wore ridiculously long, blue press-on nails. What she wore remained a complete blank in his memory. He confirmed his role in her disposal, recalling the use of hefty trash bags. The bags were weighted with dirt and sealed with duct tape. Each one was then thrown into the Ohio River. He knew the exact location of the dump site, but not the address. The location was closer to his parents' house, not his mother's. An inquiry was made regarding his parents' address. He described a section of river road with 5 or 6 boat docks. He remembered the precise dock they used, near the Louisville Boat Club. It was located between a private dock and a publicly owned one. The nature of her assistance was questioned, seeking clarification. She claimed her complicity stemmed from a direct threat against her life. She described waking from an unknown state, tied to a pole in a basement. He had given her a chilling ultimatum: help him, or be the first to die. The weapon in question was described as an ordinary pocket knife. The blade, he indicated, was not very long. It had a green handle, tapered shape, and a small piece of paracord. The current whereabouts of the knife were unknown to him. He presumed it was disposed of, and confirmed this happened at his mother's house. She had no knowledge of the address, not even that he owned a place. She clarified the house belonged to the mother of a man named Michael. Unable to provide a last name, the focus shifted to remorse for Loveland. She insisted her feelings about the incident were beyond comprehension. Reading that he was hurt by a gunshot had caused her to shut down. She felt no regret, however, that the investigators were now there. Her actions, she claimed, were a desperate attempt to feel human. It was a feeling that had eluded her for the last couple of years. The investigator conceded that her objective to create fear was successful. She knew the profound terror she had inflicted upon everyone. Their fear, it was noted, was amplified because they didn't know who she was. The victims remained completely unaware of her identity. A gesture of apology was suggested, given the extreme fear she had caused. Since a direct apology was impossible, a letter was proposed. It was hoped a letter might grant closure, proving the attack was not personal. She agreed, but only if he would believe her remorse was authentic. The investigator gave his word the victim would read it. She would write it only if her sincerity, not her predicament, was understood. He promised her, unequivocally, that the victim would read her words. He gave his personal guarantee that the letter would be delivered. With an agreement in place, the investigator stepped out of the room. The detective questioned the specific form of nicotine he desired, asking if it was a cigarette. He revealed his confiscated dip pouches, expressing doubt about their return. His desperation was clear. He confirmed any form of nicotine would be a relief. The craving was so profound, he made a dark, hyperbolic plea for any kind of fix. The officer, a non-smoker, agreed to check, offering water as a substitute. After he accepted, the line of inquiry pivoted to a formal procedural record. The first question was direct. Had they treated him with respect? He acknowledged the importance of the official record for all involved parties. The investigator then asked if any threats or coercion had been used to secure his cooperation. He denied any pressure, affirming everything he had said was the truth. His answer was affirmative. He felt a deep shame that a secret, once known only to two people, would now be exposed. Pressed for clarity, he confessed the shame was tied to an incident involving Michael. It was a burden he had carried for years. The confession, the detective suggested, could be the first step toward finding closure. And not just for him, but also for the family of the person who was killed. The investigator commended him for taking this difficult but necessary step. Aaron finished his letter to the 47-year-old stranger, his confession sealing his fate. He pled guilty to attempted first-degree murder, earning a 20-year sentence for his extreme indifference. Ayla, the driver, pleaded guilty to a lesser charge of attempted second-degree murder. For her part, she was given a 4-year term in the youth correctional system. Failure to complete that program would trigger an 8-year sentence in an adult prison. To this day, the victim Aaron mentioned from 2009 remains an unsolved mystery. Our thoughts remain with the victims of this inexplicable and senseless attack. We thank you for joining our investigation. For our longtime viewers and those just arriving, consider exploring one of our most disturbing cases here, or one of our most recent uploads available here. Behind every cold headline and every fractured confession lies a haunting truth. Trauma is a heavy burden, but it is never a license to destroy. The story of Aaron and Ayla is a chilling reminder of what happens when we let our darkest pasts dictate our future. Aaron sought to feel human by stealing the peace of others, targeting the most vulnerable among us, those with no voice and no sanctuary. But true humanity is not found in the terror of a stranger. It is found in the courage to heal without causing new wounds. We all carry shadows. Some are long, reaching back into childhoods we didn't choose. But the moment we turn our pain into a weapon, we lose the very soul we are trying to save. Cruelty is a hollow cure. Whether it's a physical act of violence or the quiet sting of indifference, hurting others only deepens the darkness within ourselves. Choose to be the person who breaks the cycle. If you are hurting, seek the light of help, not the darkness of revenge. Let us protect the vulnerable and remember that every life, no matter how broken, carries an inherent dignity that no bullet or blade can ever justify taking away. Your past may explain who you are, but only your choices define who you become.